In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. And may the peace and mercy of Allah be upon you all. This is an episode in a series entitled Reflections by the Guidance of the Quran. And the title of this episode is Why Am I Created? Now in this series, I show an event that occurred in my life and how to ponder and reflect upon this event from the guidance of the Quran. Now, the event in this episode is that I see so many young people that they don't know their aim in life and why they are created, why Allah God Almighty placed them on this earth. And because of this, that they don't know their goal in life, you see them wasting their time, their energy, their resources in things that will bring pain and despair on them in this life and the hereafter, like doing drugs, drinking intoxicants, gambling, and all the kind of acts that there is nothing in it for them. And when I see this, if we ponder and reflect upon this from the guidance of the Noble Quran, now Allah God Almighty states in clear terms in the Quran, the last revelation of Allah God's people, why He created us. In chapter 51 verse 56 which states, and Allah God created not the jinns and humans except they should worship me. So Allah states in this verse that He created us to worship Him. Now so many people, they understood wrongly this verse. They understood that worshipping Allah God Almighty just means praying, fasting, and these kind of acts of worship. Now this is not true. To worship Allah God Almighty means to follow His orders. To worship Allah means to follow His orders. And a part of His orders to pray and to fast. But we need to look at all of His orders, not just praying and fasting. And one of the orders of Allah God to us in the Noble Quran, chapter 47 verse 7 states, O you who believe, if you make Allah victorious, then He will make you victorious and make your foothold firm. Once again, Allah states in the Noble Quran, O who you believe, if you make Allah victorious, then He will make you victorious and make your foothold firm. So here Allah states your goal in life and why He placed you on this earth, to make Him victorious. O you who believe, if you make Allah victorious. And how can you make Allah victorious? By striving to make the word of Allah God supreme. So your aim in life is to strive to make the word of Allah God supreme. And in this day of age, striving to make the word of the King supreme can be done by showing the miracle of knowledge of the Noble Quran and the superiority of the Noble Quran to the main theme of the people of this age, which is knowledge. And this miracle is shown in my website. So now by pondering upon this event, we know from the Noble Quran that the goal of every person should be to strive to make the word of the King supreme. And another verse in the Noble Quran, chapter 41 verse 33, which states, and who is better in speech than who calls to Allah God Almighty and works righteousness and say, I am of those who bow in Islam. So Allah states, who is better in speech than who calls to Allah God Almighty, meaning there is no one better in speech than that person who calls people to Allah God Almighty, meaning who strives to make the word of the Creator Supreme and who calls people to the path of Allah God Almighty. Now somebody might ask that shouldn't I be a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer? Now you can be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, but Allah God Almighty wants you to use this knowledge to make His word supreme. For example, if you are an engineer, the Noble Quran contains the best engineering. So in your university kind of education, you learn about theories in engineering and so on. So Allah teaches the best engineering in the Noble Quran, so you can compare between the two and show people the superiority of the Noble Quran in this field. And a lawyer in, for example, in jurisprudence, a doctor in medicine. So you can become any kind of these professions, but Allah the Almighty says that the best profession is to call people to Allah the Almighty. So to use this knowledge you gain to strive to make the world Creator Supreme. In that case you feel that you achieved something. So we understood this, and another verse in the Quran in chapter 9 verse 24 states, say, if your fathers, your sons, your brothers, your wives, your kindred, the wealth that you have gained, the commerce in which you fear a decline, and dwellings in which you delight, are more lovable to you than Allah, God and His Messenger, and striving in His cause, then wait until Allah, God brings about His decision, and Allah, God guides not the people who are disobedient to Allah, God. So here Allah the Almighty states that if you love your relatives, your commerce, your wealth, more than you love Allah the Almighty, then, and more than you love striving in the way of Allah the Almighty, then wait until Allah God brings about His decision. So here Allah Almighty states that we need to utilize everything at our disposal to strive to make the world Creator Supreme. And by showing the Noble Quran to people and the miracle of the Noble Quran. So you can have money and you can have a degree, but you need to utilize all of this to strive to make the world Creator Supreme. As I said, in this day of age, this can be done by the showing the miracle of knowledge of the Noble Quran, as explained in my website. Now let's compare between a person that knows his purpose in life, as stated in the Noble Quran, and the person who does not. Now a person who does not know his goal in life, then he will waste his time and energy in useless matters. Secondly, he will try drugs. He'll be more inclined to try drugs and intoxicants. Thirdly, he will be in a state of fatigue and driven away from Allah the Almighty. Fourth, he would have mental disturbances, and there will be a reduction in intelligence and maturity. So all of these kind of bad consequences, they occur when a person does not know his goal in life. Suppose the example of this is that a person who's walking and he does not know where is the end of this road. So he will go left, right, he'll go forward, he'll go backward, he'll waste his time, his energy in useless endeavors. Now if a person knows his goal in life, then he would not waste his time and energy. He would not try drugs and intoxicants. There's no time. Thirdly, he would come closer to Allah the Almighty. He would have mental stability, and there will be an increase in intelligence and maturity. And as I said once more, we learn from the Quran that your goal in life, your aim in life, is to strive to make the world Creator Supreme. And may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all.